Let's do an update. And I'm going to start with a gripe, actually, because would you know that when you do video, when you take a lot of videos, say, for example, for YouTube or for anything else, you generate a lot of data. And I've got 6.5 terabytes of storage on my laptop. And it was all pretty full. So I thought I'd pop along to my usual computer shop to see about some form of external storage to complement what I already had. So, well, that 6.5 terabytes, 5 of it was in fact external storage. And so I told him what it was that I was doing, what I needed, and he suggested I go with a hard disk drive and a dock so that I could then just use that huge amount of storage, and it wasn't too costly, you know, given that if you go with solid state drives, they can be very expensive. So I took his advice, went ahead and did that, and got myself a 16 terabyte HDD and a dock, Volans or something I think it was called. And you've got to map the drive and designate a drive number or letter to it, which I did. Put some data on it, and then within a couple of days I couldn't access the data. It said that the file was corrupt and I needed to format the drive. Naturally, I wasn't going to format the drive because, of course, that would have just eliminated everything that was already on there. So I took it back in, and they checked it out on the spot. I took in the laptop and the drive and the dock, and said that it was something wrong with the file structure, and he set it right, or said he'd fixed it on the spot. So I said, is the data still there? He said, yes, it's still there. So off I went, got home, and within a fairly short time, it had happened again. So I took it back to him and said that it's happened again. You told me it was a file structure and said that you'd rectified it, and now I'm facing a corrupted drive again. So what's the issue now? And then, of course, naturally they try and blame me. Oh, well, what have you done wrong? What did you do? And I just didn't do anything. It's just basically sitting plugged in. So he said that he said, what do you want to happen? And I said, well, I'd rather just get a refund and do something else, because this clearly isn't working. And it's an hour's drive each way. So that's 4 hours that I've spent going back and forth now. And he said, well, before he can do a refund, he's got to check to see whether there's anything wrong with the drive. And I said, so that means I leave it here and then I've got to come back again? He said, yes, there's nothing for it. So I left it with him, and then I got a text message to say it was ready to pick up, and I called up to say, when you say ready to pick up, you mean to say that you found nothing wrong with it? Is that right? Yes, that's right. You can come and get it, you know. So I went all the way back in, and that fellow wasn't available. And I'm wondering why. It's because he probably didn't want to hear what I had to say. But I got somebody else, and I said that this doesn't really work for me, whether you find that it's perfectly all right setting it up on your systems or not. It's just not working, because that's twice now that it hasn't worked, twice now that I'm having to come back in, twice now that I can't access the data, and once that I've had to leave it with you so I don't have access to anything that was on it. So putting stuff on there is, for me, very risky, and I don't want to continue to do that. I said, so this is what I've got. Is this appropriate to do what I'm doing? And he said, no. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, the dock really is not like a permanent situation. It's only for docking, for copying stuff onto and or off drives. What are you doing? And I said, well, I'm leaving it permanently plugged in and switched on, because that's what I said that I wanted to do, so I can access the data. So are you saying it's not appropriate? And because at that point then he started backtracking and said, No, no, it's not what I'm saying at all, that's exactly what he had said. Anyway, I carried on and moaned and groaned for a little while longer, and he said, oh, well, look, we'll just refund your money. And I said, well, that's fine, but I've got data on there at the moment that I couldn't access, so I've got to get that data off. Can you do that for me? And he said, well, we can't, because we don't have anything to copy it to. So unless you want to bring in a drive and or take it home and copy it yourself, you'll have to take it away again and copy it yourself. So I said, oh, fair enough. So I took it home and I I copied the data off it, and then took it back. So they refunded the money, and I set off with a different kind of solution. But lo and behold, I discovered later on that in fact some of the data that I'd put on there was not on there, and so therefore when I copied everything off it, that data had gone. By now, of course, it's too late, because I've given them the drive back, and presumably they've formatted it or whatever. So whatever, if it was ever there, it's not there now, which means that a bunch of stuff has actually gone missing. And I know what it is because I went looking for it and it had gone. So it's actually all of the Dear Diary files, everything, all of the source files, all of the video, all of the stills, everything. And there were about 12 of them, and they include too the footage of the drone crashing into a power line. Now they are on YouTube, but that's only a kind of a tiny bit of the footage, because of course all of the footage, that is the flight and leading up to the crash, is not there, and any stills, anything for any of that Dear Diary footage, if it's not on YouTube, it's gone forever. So that's incredibly frustrating to me. There's nothing I can do about it. I can't really go back to them and moan, because they'll say, well, didn't you copy it off? And of course I didn't even notice. Who knows what's not there, if you know what I mean. Like if it's either there or it's not there, and if it's not there, you don't know it's not there, because you don't go looking specifically for it until later on when you discover it's missing. I hope this is not too confusing for you, but the gripe is, though, that you can no longer really trust computer stores to give you the information that you need, even when you have given them your use, as in your use case. So I need something for something particular, but they'll just sell you any old product, even if it's not suitable. And that fellow let the cat out of the bag when he told me that that wasn't an appropriate use for the dock and the hard drive, because they're basically just a two-slot copy one to the other, rather than to be used permanently as storage. At least that's the impression that he gave me. So what do? You know, I've been shopping at that particular computer store for years, you know, probably 20 years. And so it's really disappointing to discover that they're not that supportive when things go wrong, because in the end it was 4 trips there and back. So that's 8 one-hour journeys. So 8 hours that I spent going back and forth to a product I no longer have, that in essence has lost me a bunch of data. In the end, it didn't cost anything in terms of money, because they did refund all the money, but it's still incredibly disappointing to have spent all of that time and to have lost that critical data. You can't recreate that stuff. So it's important that when I put something onto a disk or a drive or wherever I put it, that it stays there, because what if I want to access it at some point in the future? So that's the gripe out of the way. Now the second thing is that I have started a new channel, and I think I did speak about this at one stage, potentially maybe on a Dear Diary that was never uploaded and that went missing, I don't know, but I'm sure I did speak about it at one stage. that I intended on getting myself a second channel, because while this channel is, vehicle centric, and I'm actually sitting in the bus right at this very moment. So while it's vehicle centric, and I started talking about this whole thing, this whole channel, and the old man on the bus, in the bus, back in 2022, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So 4 years ago. I've kind of wandered off from time to time. Now, some of it is kind of machinery related, like fixing lawnmowers or whatever it might be, and or yard work or whatever it might be, but some of it is completely unrelated, and that's the stuff to do with photography. Now, I have developed a very strong interest in photography, some of which I suppose is generated by the use of video cameras, such as this one that I'm using at the moment. But along the way, of course, I picked up a bunch of cameras, and some of those are just more appropriate for still photography, such as, for example, the Canon 5D Mark III or the Pentax K1. And so I've actually started taking still photography, but I've also developed an interest in film photography. So the new channel is called The Old Man and a Camera, because that's appropriate for an old man who's wandering about the countryside with a camera. So check it out. It's been uploaded and currently has, I think, a whopping great 3 views. So if you add your views to it, that might give me 4 or 5. That said, though, I also did want to give you an update on vehicles. I spoke some time back about selling this vehicle, the bus. I love this bus. I really do. Just sitting in it like I am right now is kind of really pleasing. You're out of the house, you're in the bus. And the other day I shifted it because we had some very strong winds, and the last thing I wanted was for a tree branch to fall on the roof, and I end up with more damaged vehicles, because this one's actually not insured. So while the Troopy was insured and the Caravan was insured, this is not, because you cannot you cannot insure through the insurer I use an unregistered vehicle. Plus, I do have the Troopy insured. You can see that over my shoulder, I think, just here. I do have the Troopy insured with a different insurer, and I tried to insure the BMW, which you can also see over there, through that same insurer, and it's not registered, which means that I can't insure it with my usual insurer, nor can I register it with my new insurer, because it's not undercover. And so the complications are that you can insure a registered vehicle but not an unregistered one through some insurers, and you can insure a vehicle that's laid up, but as long as it's kind of secure or safe or at least undercover. And that means that if your vehicle's sitting in the yard like this bus or that BMW, then you can't. So that's a complication with that. So regarding that, though, there's money tied up both in this bus, which is actually quite an expensive vehicle. It's worth probably more than all of the others combined. But there's also money tied up in a tractor. Now, I do know that I was pretty excited to buy the tractor, but to be perfectly honest, it was a spontaneous buy, and I just can't see a use for it. While I have putted around the yard a few times, run out of fuel and a couple of things, I just don't use it. And so, do I even need to keep it? it's a bit like the bus. Having it is great, but what do I have it for? And so I do have to rationalise at some point. So the update is that, and the tractor will probably be the first to go because it'll be quite simple. I've just got to give it a good clean up. I've got some side steps for it to go on, and I'll pop out there in a minute and show you what I'm talking about. I've got some side steps for it to put on. So put on the side steps, fix up that carry-all, and give it a good clean and put it on the market. I think I can at least get my money back, probably make a few bucks on it, and that will be fine with me. And then the bus, which will take a bit longer because, as you can see, it's in a state of disrepair with a couple of these window surrounds having fallen off, and a good clean is required, you know, so go over it and give it a good clean, and putting a couple of things back on. So as you can see in the back, that interior trim is off. The air conditioning cowling is off, and the rear bumper is off. So putting those things back on, the rear bumper needs a bit of a touch up, and then give it a damn good clean and get it on the market and get it sold. Once again, I think I can at least get my money back, and that'll be good enough, because I suppose that if it hasn't cost anything, well, then it hasn't cost anything. So let's go and have a look around. I'll show you these couple of things, and then we'll get this uploaded so you've got an update so you know where we are. This is the, sorry, it's getting a bit dark now, but this is the window trim that's fallen off. There's one on this side, and there's one on that side. There is that cowling at the back. That's the air conditioning cowling that needs to go back on, as well as that trim that needs to go there on that corner and in behind those boxes. There's the missing rear bumper. Needs to go back on. Other than that, there isn't too much that needs doing to the outside other than to go over it and give it a really nice clean. BMW, I think I gave you an update on that, but basically we have to do something to the suspension, as in new shockies all round and brakes. So that is to dismantle them at the very least, and free up either the calipers or the drums. I'm not sure what the issue is, but get it on a flat spot, put some axle stands underneath it, and pull off those wheels, and then see what's in behind there. Troopy, as you know, we need to do that internal fit out on that. And on the tractor, I did mention those side steps. That's them there, here, and they mount on the side, hanging off this foot peg here, and bolt on that cover there. So let's give it all a good clean up. Just a brief update, and let you know what I've been up to and what I need to get up to. And I think the first job it would be to get that tractor sorted. Let's get that cleaned up. Let's get those side steps on. Let's get that advertised and get a few bucks back for it. Then likewise with the bus, we have to get a bit serious. And in fact, now that it's cooling down a bit too, it makes life a bit easier to work on these things. So look, thanks for sticking with it. Check out The Old Man on a Camera. I think you'll find that that's probably boring if you're not interested in cameras or video or still photography, but if you are, you might find it interesting. I'll see you again soon.